So if you have a vehicle and you think you have a clogged fuel filter, I thought I'd go over the symptoms of a clogged fuel filter, why they become clogged up, and what you could do about it if they have. And so first of all, there could be two types of fuel filters. There could be an inline fuel filter, which is going to be on the fuel line between the gas tank and the engine. And then some vehicles are going to have the fuel filter inside the gas tank with the fuel pump. It can vary a little bit on the vehicle, the manufacturer, things like this. But however it's laid out, whether or not it's an inline fuel filter or it's inside the gas tank with the fuel pump, the engine's going to have the same symptoms if it becomes clogged up. And so the only real difference between an inline fuel filter and an in-tank fuel filter is that if it's in the fuel tank, you're going to have to pull the fuel pump to get to it. And so what happens when a fuel filter becomes clogged? Well, basically it's just going to block the flow of gasoline going to the engine. So either the engine's not going to get any gas at all, or it's going to have very low fuel pressure. So if you check the fuel pressure up at the engine fuel rail, then it's going to be less than what the vehicle's rated for. And so for example, if the vehicle's rated to be running at 55 PSI, but it's running lower than that, but it's running at like 30 or 40 or even 0, then that could be a symptom of a clogged fuel filter. And so what would be the symptoms of the clogged fuel filter on the engine? Well, first of all, it could be really hard to start, or there could be no start. It might be idling rough. You might have bad engine performance. You go to step on the gas and it just doesn't want to go. It could be misfiring and it could be stalling out. And so why would a fuel filter become clogged up? Well, first of all, it might just need to be replaced. If the fuel filter is really old, especially inline fuel filters, that is part of regular maintenance. It could vary on the vehicle manufacturer when you're supposed to replace them, but roughly around 30 to 60,000 miles is pretty common. If you replace that fuel filter and it's only gone like 10,000 miles or something along those lines, then that's too short of a lifespan. And so if that fuel filter is not lasting very long, it has a short lifespan, then the most common reason for this is going to be that there's some kind of contaminant inside the gas tank, which is usually rust. This is very common for vehicles that sit for long periods of time inside of storage or something like that. If they've been sitting for like 6 months to a year or something along those lines, and they have the old gas inside there, that old gas could go bad, and quite commonly they could rust up the gas tank or components inside the fuel pump or something along those lines. And this will cause rust to constantly be flaking out and clogging up the fuel filter. And so if your vehicle was inside of storage for a long period of time and it keeps clogging up fuel filters, then that's going to be the first thing to go and look for. Another thing that can happen sometimes, mainly with inline fuel filters, is that they got installed wrong. There'll be an arrow on the fuel filter, and that arrow is supposed to point towards the engine. If it's not pointing towards the engine, then it's going to cause problems. And so while not too common, it is something to keep a lookout for, because sometimes these fuel filters get installed wrong, and if they are, then it's going to cause issues. And so how do you go about fixing a fuel filter that's clogged up? Well, basically it needs to be replaced. If it's an inline fuel filter, be sure to get your arrows right when you go to install it. It's going to be the simplest one to install. If it's inside with the fuel pump, you can buy a fuel filter for them and take them apart and put the new fuel filter in there. Some people will do this, they'll take apart the fuel pump and they'll just replace the fuel filter. But if it was me and I had to pull out the whole fuel pump, I would just replace it with the new one that comes all packaged together with the new fuel filter. But if you think that fuel pump's going to last a lot longer, you usually can take it apart and replace just the filter if you want to. And if it's getting clogged up very quickly, then go and check the gas tank for any kind of contaminants, mainly rust. And so that's basically it. I just wanted to go over the symptoms of a clogged fuel filter and what would cause a fuel filter to become clogged up. If you have anything to add, please comment down below. If you have any questions, ask me and I'll try to answer them. If this video helps you, please click like, please click subscribe, and have a good day.